All right, so we're live. How you doing, Tom?
Good, good. Good morning, Vito, or afternoon, wherever you might be listening from.
Yeah, kind of in the middle.
Yeah, that's right.
During the past couple of days during the event, everything seems like a bit of a blur. You know how it is.
That's right.
But I'm excited to be here with you, and I'm excited to start day three of the Web Agency Summit. With every morning with the intros, we're also broadcasting this out to social media, just so that people can get a bit of a feel of what we're creating here, what is happening inside, and what we're gonna do today or over the upcoming hour. We're gonna explore along with you, Tom, a little bit. We're going to dive into how we're powering this event, because the level of scale that we managed to create it is really, it's new territory to me. You probably have seen some things like that before, but I'm sure that a lot of the people that are joining us throughout within the event itself and outside within the Facebook groups are gonna be shocked by the amount of requests, the amount of visits, the amount of resources really that it takes to pull something like this off, and the level of infrastructures that we had to put in place to power up the biggest event in the WordPress space, really. How about we start, Tom, by I'm going to give you the stage to introduce yourself a little bit, and so everyone can know why you are the top expert to get something like this done. And then we're going to see some numbers. We're going to go down into the technical aspect of it a little bit, not getting too technical, just so that people can hopefully learn from this. And if they're encountering any platforms or any websites for them and for their clients that they need to scale up rapidly, they can hopefully implement some of those things in place. Right after that, we're gonna dive into going through the schedule of the day to see what we have planned for today. There's all kinds of awesome things that are coming up, and just to give you, if you're gonna look at the title that is right here above me, just so you see a little bit of what's coming for the rest of the day. And I'm just going to do a quick kind of this one. We're going to talk about Alexa. We're going to talk about WAS. We're going to talk about accessibility for inside the project, how to get customers from LinkedIn, how to measure the value of the agency, how to translate websites, but not only how to translate them, but how to use that as a revenue source for your business itself, as well as how to transform your own agency website into a marketing machine. So that was a quick one, just to get everyone excited about what we're going to dive in and talk about the speakers, so on. So, Tom, how are you today? Please introduce yourself and let us know
Yeah,
who you are. Yes.
yeah, doing great. I am so excited about the schedule. I've been, of course, glued to the summit for the last couple days. So I've been in almost every chat so far, and it's been great.
Awesome.
Yeah, so my name's Tom. I'm the founder of a company called Convesio, and we really focus on scalable, high-speed. I'll kind of unpack this infrastructure for WordPress, and it's all container-based, clustered databases, and multiple servers. So it's very unlike traditional solutions where your website might be on a single VPS or a single dedicated server, or perhaps a shared server infrastructure, and there is a limited number of resources available to that. And I think that's really where the magic of hosting an event like this comes from, is that many of these events they need too many resources all at once to be hosted on a single machine. And that's kind of the notion of distributing the load is really important. But a lot of people don't really understand all of the stuff that goes into this. And one of the things I was telling Vito is, we get asked a lot, like, how much capacity or servers do I need to host an event of X people? And Vito, as you know, every website is different, and every website requires different resources. So, one of the things you've got to do effectively is planning, right? You've got to do load testing, and you've got to look at, did we have this event in a prior year, and how did the performance of that event go? Because you don't want to overpower and have more incurred costs, and you definitely don't want to be underpowered. I suppose if you had to do one or the other, you might choose to be overpowered. You don't want to be underpowered because if things go wrong in the middle of the summit, you've got a situation where sometimes resolution to those things is not fast, right? I mean, in worst case scenario, a code change has to happen because something is inefficient at scale and you didn't realize it because you didn't do any load testing. And so we did, we planned for weeks before, and, for the week leading up to the summit, we were, doing load testing and all sorts of things to make sure that the performance of the platform didn't have any gotchas. And so I'm going to share some stats, and Vito, I'd love for you to chime in on this. Let me just share my screen here, and I'm actually going to present.
So how about we kind of get into the game of first, let's start with, so you talked about a little bit about the planning, how we're getting into that game. So now you're going to talk a little bit about how, or are you going to show us a little bit about the load testing and how that kind of came into place?
Yeah, absolutely. I can definitely do that, and we can go in any order that you want. But let me just share my screen here, and I'm going to.
Let's show some big numbers so people can really understand what we're dealing with here.
Absolutely.
And really, I've been building websites for more than a decade now, or really almost 20 years now. Or I'm underestimating how old I am. A little more than 20 years now. And I've never had to deal with anything at this level of scale. And not only what we did here for the event, but what we're doing together for Wahi as well, which is the platform through what we're running the event from. So I'm going to allow you to share your screen so we can get some of these numbers in place.
Can you see that as a full screen, or are you looking at my?
You can see what we are seeing. Really, there's like black bars on the sides, and I can see the
perfect.
2 million. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Great. Okay. So just to level set where we're at in the first 2 days of the conference, and I was pulling up this data, and this is edge data from Cloudflare. So we'll kind of bounce around and talk about the infrastructure we're running and a few things, but this is really sort of the highest level view of the performance of the conference. And in 2 days, we've had 2 million requests processed, and we've had about 6,000 visitors, and from 91 countries. And Vito, I think that's a huge testimony to just the reach of this. We were on a chat in the lounge with someone video chatting, and they were just expressing, they were I think in Pakistan, just expressing how happy they were that this was available to them, because with COVID and everything going on around the world, there just wasn't the availability of WordPress meetups, conferences, and all of that stuff. And so
even in specific, we're very fortunate to live in. I'm in the UK. You're in the US, and things come here, right? Things come to these countries. But I remember when I was living back in Israel, and in a lot of other places around the world, like these things just don't happen. You're just constantly being left out of the game just because of your geographical location. So I agree that, and this was one of the things that we tried to push towards. So even though we can see that the top countries here on the list are English-speaking countries, because the summit is delivered in English, and our circles of networks and so on are mostly in English-speaking countries, we still managed to serve 91 additional 89 additional countries on top of these ones, so that people really from all over the world can come in, learn from what's going on and what are the industry standards that we're doing right now, stuff that really they usually couldn't do, and I couldn't do when I was back in Israel as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's, this is data that I think a lot of people should take note to, whether you're looking at sponsoring an event like this, or you're looking at participating in an event like this, or in any way sort of getting behind it, the ability for this to scale, to reach the audience that it reached. I mean, yes, you can have 6,000 visitors at a physical event for sure, but you're not going to have 6,000 people from 91 countries most likely. And so the ability for this to scale to this kind of reach is, I think, really I was actually really surprised when I saw that, because I was like, wow, that is a number that's a pretty big number for 2 days, So, all right, well, jumping ahead, I'm going to skip a couple slides. We'll come back to them. But we talked about load testing, okay? So
what is load testing? Just for people who don't know what the concept is.
All right, so great. So when you put up your website, right, there's going to be a certain number of people that can hit that website before the server is going to run out of resources, okay? Now, sometimes that number is 10, sometimes that number is 10,000. You don't know, because every hosting platform and every website is different. And so load testing there's several tools that allow you to do this. And basically, this is a way where you can simulate visitors coming to your website and browsing around various pages. And there's a lot of different tools out there. I have a couple favorites I'll share with the audience. So first one is a product, and I've got some charts from it on another slide. It's called RoboSwarm, and I think the URL is roboswarm.dev, and the guy there is his name's Jack. He's a great guy. He has another product called Kernel in the WordPress space that does plugin updates and all sorts of stuff. But that product is designed specifically for WordPress. So you can do some really cool things with that product, like simulate WooCommerce checkout. You can simulate logged in users browsing your site, which was really important for us, because one of the things that's a big load on the site and breaks caching, and we'll get into that in a moment, is whether or not people are going to be visiting and browsing your site anonymously, not logged in, or whether they're going to be logged in. If you have to log in 10,000 people, that's a lot more load on your server than people browsing cached pages. So, this concept of load testing, we ran several different scenarios in load testing. And so, this one here is no cache, no CDN, but no people logged in. And so we ran this, and we did, if you look over here, we did 3,000 clients over 5 minutes, and that had an average response rate of 925 milliseconds and no errors. And that's what you want to figure out. Now, one of the things you want to look for when you're load testing is, what is my breaking point? So, it's not uncommon that you'll see people test. And when you do a load test, you have to make assumptions, right? And if those assumptions can be rooted in reality, that's a lot more helpful. And, Vito, we didn't have, because we weren't all working on the summit last year, we didn't really have exactly the data that we needed that we have this year, because we've been watching it. And so, we had some Google Analytics data, we had some Cloudflare data,
but we didn't grab throughout the event last year. But really, now that you're mentioning this, last year we didn't go as deep as we did this time, a lot with your help, Tom. And what happened on the first day, we were shocked that we got 220,000 requests in an hour, and the whole thing just crashed. So this time we came prepared, and everything was nice and smooth through the transition. And really, when that happened last year, this is above my pay grade, right? All of this stuff. So my what I ended up doing is I just I'm relying on the community. That so some sponsors who were sponsoring as well last year, and the guys from RunCloud, and got some people from AWS to work together with some of the speakers. So luckily, we're in the right community for something like this to happen in real time, and everyone just chimed in and helped us get back on track. But really, what I was doing is I was running behind I got out of the seat, and I was just like running in circles until the website went back up. So now understanding, or after doing the learning about what are all of these things and where things can break down when you're scaling things up unpredictably, which I might say, allowed us to prepare a lot better through load testing and through some of the additional things you will show us now. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's, I remember that, and I felt your pain because, I talked to a lot of people, and, I've certainly been involved in things prior to Convesio where stuff has gone down and people have underestimated the load. And, there's only so much technology can do, right? It's like if you're not expecting and you're pleasantly surprised and you've got 10x, you're probably going to be stressing a lot of infrastructure that you might have planned that you thought would be really good. And by the way, just as a side note of, levity, part of the thing that made this event stressful for me was the fact that this is all of our peers. Okay. So it's kind of like, okay, we have to make sure this goes off without any issues. And so I was obsessed personally with making sure we had the right stuff in place for this. And so far, I think we've had great results. And, part of the thing is being able to know what's going on. And I think last year, right, you didn't have the visibility that you've got this year. And we'll share some more of that. But the other thing we kind of look for, going back to load tests here, is how many sustained users can we have simultaneously? And, one of the metrics that's really important on this is your requests per second that the site can handle. And this is very, very different than if you were caching data. If you're caching data, you can serve that data extremely fast with very high throughput. But if you've got to process a bunch of database requests, and then you have to make sure you have a scalable database layer. And so one of the other tests we ran, and this was where we said, okay, let's put a couple hundred users simultaneously in the system, just aggressively browsing continuously, like every second requesting a page, okay? And, we had I think a path of 5 pages that we thought would be primary pages. And, they're the pages like the main session, the lounge, this, that and the other, the exhibit hall. Registration, the login. Yeah, registration, booths, And so, we ran that test and we got to the place where we're like, okay, we're processing, 123 requests with no caching, no layer of optimization, no CDN at this point. And we're like, okay, this is, performing pretty well. This is very unlikely that, and the performance, I don't know if I had charts on this, but the one of the things we looked at was, what is the experience of the load time of the pages? And as you can see here, they're still in the hundreds of milliseconds here, okay? And so the whole point of this is, can I have a good performance window where, if the site takes, 30 seconds to load a page, that's a fail. You might not get any failures, but things are becoming so hard for users to navigate that they get frustrated. So,
you sort of have to watch, like, okay, what are my response times and what are my failures? Because you don't want errors, and you also don't want users that are frustrated because it's taking a long time to load. Those are really the things that we look for primarily for the end user experience. And so part of this load testing scenario was pushing the envelope and seeing what's taking a long time, what can we cache. We also went in, because as we started to layer things like a content delivery network on top of this, we had to go in and make sure, is everything working? Like, does chat work? Do people's avatars update? There's all sorts of things that caching in a logged in environment can cause difficulties with. Now, we took special care, but to make sure that wasn't the case, but we definitely have to test that as well.
Tom, what kind of tools are you using for this load testing?
Oh, so yeah. So there's RoboSwarm, and it's roboswarm.dev, and I think that's really good. And this is a chart from there. And then this is a screenshot from loader.io. And loader.io is a little bit more, it's not complicated in the sense that it's, it's hard to use. It's just not as customized for WordPress. So WordPress is by far more compatible, or RoboSwarm was really designed for WordPress. So that's their niche, and Jack's done a great job. So if you want to test WooCommerce checkouts and things like that, or logged in users, far easier to do on RoboSwarm than it is to do on loader.io, in my experience. So so that's these tests. So at the end of all of these tests, we kind of were like, we had some infrastructure we had rolled out, and I'm going to jump to that real quick. So this is a screenshot of the Convesio dashboard, and I had mentioned
dashboard, right? So you're just releasing this. So
yeah, this is going to be new. This is actually going to be this version is going to be live. You guys were absolutely the first people to use this new version of Convesio, and this is going to be live next week for general use. And what we did, and this is where I'll sort of dive a little bit more into some of the technical stuff, just so people understand. And Vito, you know this, right? This is the problem we're trying to solve, right? If you have to hire a sysadmin DevOps person to stand up for you, multiple servers, load balancers, figuring out how to run Docker, WordPress and Docker, a clustered database. I mean, you did that for some of the video streaming technology. I mean, what was that like, Vito, when you did that? Like, that's not an easy, quick process, right? And it's not cheap either.
Not at all. It's not cheap, really, is the key point here. Being your own sysadmin or hiring proper sysadmins, but also it's the matter of availability, because with what we're doing right now, really every minute counts. We have thousands of people walking around the platform at any given moment. If the platform crashes for an hour, you lose the trust of thousands of people instantly. And so when it comes to running events, or even when it comes to running e-com sites, you want to make sure that you have someone on call. And if you want to make sure that you have someone on call 24/7, then it's not just hiring the one guy, right? No one can handle that. You need to build a team around this, and and really, to be honest, because this is not really my forte, I'm more of I'm more on the website side, I'm more on the business side, I'm more on the marketing side. So getting into the game of dealing with AWS and the different containers, load balancers, and all of those kind of different things, is just way beyond the things that I want to deal with, really.
Yeah, and it's a scary place to be when something goes wrong with a setup like this, because it's so complicated if you were to hand roll this on AWS or Google Cloud. it's so complicated that for the people who are our audience, who are the non-technical site creators, builders, marketers, who just need to have the ability to scale a site for an event. Hey, I'm doing a big email blast. I want to make sure I can handle it. Or hey, I'm getting featured in some really big TV show or social media outlet, and I want to make sure I can handle it. And how do you do that? It's like upgrading your site. Like, oh, I got to go change packages. I might have to migrate to a new server. There's a lot of complexities in doing that with existing hosting providers. And this is really what we've made dead simple. Like a few pushes of the button, a non-technical person can have, all of this type of infrastructure running for their site. And what we've done, just to go back to kind of the summit here, and what we're running is, we have you're on a dedicated cluster for the summit. It's running 5 C2 instances. Those are compute optimized instances on Google Cloud. Each of them have 16 cores and there's 64 gigs of RAM. There's 5 load balancers. So each server has a load balancer. There's 10 WordPress containers. And that's an image of this right here, which these are all 10 of your containers. And you can see by looking at this, what the CPU load is on each one. And you can see that we've pretty much balanced requests almost evenly between all of these different containers. This is something that takes, tens and tens and tens of hours of a sysadmin to set up a load balancing configuration. And oh, by the way, if you don't do this every day, there's tons of little gotchas that you could run into that are tricky to figure out and to work the kinks out of. And so all of this is the front end of it, and then we have a Percona extra DB cluster, which is a master cluster that's load balancing all of the database requests.
So let's talk a little bit about, we're dropping terms here left and right, and I can see I can understand that some people might be like, kind of glazing off. So what are load balancers? Let's start with this one.
Great question. So, and I'm going to give you an analogy that is something that I've been working on this pitch for a while to explain this, because it's hard when your closest friends and family don't totally understand what you do. Right. So imagine you've got a cup, okay, and you're pouring water into it, and the cup is your server and the water are your website visitors. At some point you reach maximum capacity of how much that can handle. And so what starts happening? People start overflowing and water starts spilling. Well, what Convesio does is we have the ability to spin up another cup for you, okay? And that a load balancer is what distributes the water from it. It knows this cup is full, and it says start using the other cup. And so a load balancer sits in front of your website, and it distributes the visitors to the different cups. And as each cup fills up, instead of it overflowing, which would be your visitors getting a really slow website or your visitors getting an error, instead of overflowing, we basically have another cup spin up for it. And so
here we have actually 5 cups at this point.
Well, we have 5 cups. Those cups could be your individual servers. More specifically in our platform, a cup is a container. So a container is what runs your actual WordPress, your runtime of your WordPress. And so, and you have 10 cups. Let's not over confuse people with the other level of the server. But yes, that's in essence what happens, and that's how a load balancer works. Is in Convesio, your site can clone itself to all of these different servers, and the load is distributed among them evenly.
And is this something that happens automatically? It's going to go up, it's going to go down, or is that something that you need to monitor and be aware of?
Yeah, it depends. You can do both. So in Convesio, you have the ability to choose to manually scale your site up with a click of a button, or you have what's called auto scaling, and auto scaling will give you the ability, and this is all in the new release we're pushing out this week. Auto scaling gives you the ability, we have a screen now where you can control it, and you can say, if my CPU instance gets over 80% for 5 minutes, add another container to the site. And that all happens automatically.
Okay. And then around this concept, I know that this was a question that I had when I started getting into the game of load balancers, because in most cases, or from my experience, I was mostly building small to medium businesses websites. We didn't need that level of resources for the vast majority of projects, and I can also tell you that we did need this for some, but I just didn't know about this, when we needed it. But something that really came to mind is like, what is going to happen to the WordPress website that you're running? Can I make changes if it's distributed over different websites or different servers, really? What is going to happen if I make a CSS change on one? What is going to happen if I'm going to update a plugin from my backend? How is that going to reflect throughout?
Yeah, great question. Really good question, actually. So there's two, we're getting a little in the technical details, but there's two ways you can scale on Convesio. So we can scale your WordPress resources, which is this container. We can do it on a single node of a server. Okay, so let's say you've got a container running. Think of it as like a micro VPS for your website. And we can scale that on a single container. So maybe you get a surge of traffic, but it's not astronomical, right? It's just more than your resources allow. Your site scales up to 2 containers. That's totally fine to make edits and changes, okay? You can make that all in that one server, because none of the files don't need to synchronize to other instances across the cluster. But if you're running like you are running in a situation today where you're across many clusters and we're having high traffic events, then we want to lock your code base. Okay, now this isn't your uploads folder. Okay, it isn't that type of stuff. It's your code base of your CSS files, your plugins, and all that. We don't want to be in a scaled event where you've got potentially millions or thousands of requests coming in per second, per minute, and you're trying to push code updates to your site, because that's not, we want to try and stay away from that. That can be unpredictable. So
that's really what we did here. You let us know, all right, we're going to scale things up before we opened our doors, and we went into code lock. We have our little staging environment where if there is something, we can play around, check things out. And then if we need to deploy any piece of code, really the process is scaling down back to a singular container and then bringing it back up. Is that correct?
Yes, that's exactly right. Yep.
Yeah. Okay, so this is so we kind of now understand the distribution of the infrastructure. Yeah, please go on, Tom.
I do want to add one more thing. You brought up a really good point, which is what happens for most people. They don't need this, right? The challenge is that when you need it, sometimes you don't know you need it, and when you need it, if you find out during the event, it's kind of too late because you're trapped on this thing. And so what we've done that sort of we think is innovative here is this notion that you can have the ability to scale up anytime and you don't need it. In fact, you can totally disable auto scaling. So like if you're an agency and you're like, well, I have fixed costs per month where I charge my clients X and I can't go back and charge them more. So I don't want scaling on because I don't want the idea of an unpredictable bill because the client did whatever. You can totally disable it. And so the thing is, and what we're doing that we've made really smooth is You don't need to change billing plans. You don't need to upgrade. You don't need to move your site. You don't need to do any of that stuff. If you know you have an event and you've talked to your customer, you can literally turn auto scaling on or scale up and manually, and you can run it like that, and you only pay for the resources you use.
That's great. So I have a question here from Gila before we're moving on to the next part of this session, where we're going to be reviewing the talks that are coming up today. But let's just let me get your take on this. Will you guys be supporting developments as or deployment with Trellis? A bit of a technical question here, right?
Yeah. So we don't today, but I will tell you that, and if this person sounds like he's pretty technical, and so I'm sure he knows about Docker and all the wonderful things that you get as a benefit of that. And our plan is that today we deploy a very specific WordPress container. Actually, we have many different containers based on configurations and all that. Part of the magic of being a containerized platform is if I say, you know what, I want to deploy a container configured for headless, or we're enterprise Cloudflare partners and we leverage workers really heavily. And so, we're investigating things like, okay, well, are there ways to do static websites where we can just push your website completely to the edge of Cloudflare and, turn off your container so it can serve statically on the edge. There's all sorts of future projects like that we are investigating, and absolutely using frameworks like Trellis, Gatsby, and all that are extremely interesting to us, and we're going to get there. We officially launched our product to the market in January of 2020. And so we're a little over a year old, and we had been in R&D for a couple of years prior to that, because as you can imagine, we've been solving challenges here that aren't very simple to solve. But we're going to be in fact, the new version is finally going to support multi-site. And so, yes, we're adding many new things, and we're definitely going to be looking at those things in the future.
So I'm going to throw one last question your way from Hassan here. Does your support provide hands-on help in optimizing WordPress websites? Are you going to go into the website and see what's up?
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. We'll definitely help with that.
Okay.
I want to share one more stat, Vito. Where is it here? So this is just to give you some sense of scale of the conference. So internal network traffic on this cluster has been 47 terabytes in 2 days. We've peaked out somewhere, last time I looked, around 3,000 database queries a second, and you've had over 500,000 chat refreshes. And so, yeah, I mean, you can see the sheer number of data that's served through all of your containers, right? Like all the disk usage is being pushed through this here. So this is exciting stuff for us to sort of geek out on, but I just wanted to give people a sense of scale. And quite frankly, this is the kind of stuff that it just gets hard to do unless on one machine. And the reason that we like this distributed approach to this is we get this level of scale that's hard to do on one particular machine.
Okay. This is amazing, Tom. And looking at these, these are insane numbers just to really understand what we're dealing with, and to get to a place where everything is nice and smooth as it is inside the venue. When people are jumping between the lounge and the live sessions, and all over or between the different booths, that is a huge undertaking to this. So I want to thank you for helping us with this. And now I'd like to bring in Andrew to join us. So how are you doing, Andrew?
I'm good, Tom. It's just, a head blown off situation with, watching all this activity go on. And I know that, we're working backstage and there's some stuff going on, and we've got lots of things, that we have to do, almost instant production stuff. And, adding banners and doing all sorts of answering questions, making sure the sponsors are okay, making sure the networking lounge is okay. And if we didn't have a fast interface to do that, or a fast website to do that, we'd be stuffed, basically. I mean, it's astounding that we've transferred 47 terabytes of data over the last 2 days. It's mind-blowing, isn't it? It's crazy.
It's exciting stuff, and it's awesome. I'm so excited to see the success of the summit. So
yeah.
So without further ado, let's just dive in to see what's coming up today. So today is day 3 of the Web Agency Summit. And as you've seen from the numbers over there, we managed to maintain our position this year as well as being the biggest event in the WordPress space. A lot of this is only possible thanks to our amazing sponsors, the amazing partners, the fact that people are sharing the word, the incredible speakers that we managed to gather throughout this event. So I'm going to share my screen here so people can really see who we're talking about. So that includes GoDaddy Pro, WP Engine, GridPane, WordPress.com, a High Level, Nexus by Liquid Web, Groundhog, Elementor, Shield Security, WP Activity Log, Termageddon, Wiglot, Cloudways that we just saw Hassan from, Fixed Runner, Yoast, and of course the in-kind supporters, which is Convesio, and Wahi is powering the platform itself. So now let's see what's going to happen today. So we're going to kick things off in the morning by talking to Thibaut from Wiglot, and he's going to teach us about generating additional revenue for your agency through upselling or through selling multilingual websites. And I'm just going to direct your view here to the categories that we have here. So we have 4 categories happening within the summit. It starts from build, then we have expand, scale, and thrive. That's why you're going to see another session about multilingual from the build aspect of it. But when it comes to expand, we're going to mostly be talking about the business side of it. So this is about how to build proper a website for global audiences through multilingual for your clients. So we're not really focused around building websites for yourselves in most of the sessions. We're focused around delivering websites for clients, which is a different mindset completely. It's a project that has to have a beginning, middle, and an end, as opposed to, as Tom was talking about building their own platform. You have 2-3 years of R&D. You can't do that with clients. You got to get the job done and move on to the next project. And so that's why the build category is focusing around that aspect. And then expand is using what we learn on the build category to expand our business, to generate additional revenue stream. And I can tell you that within my agency, upselling additional languages was always an amazing idea. So because people, when they need an additional language, you're essentially you deploy all kinds of different tools like Thibaut is going to talk about here with Wiglot. But this doesn't really mean that you need to translate. You need to manage the ability to translate multiple language, and you can create that for additional languages. So a website that started with one language can create upsell additional revenue for every additional language that is being added to it. So imagine a 3K project. If you add one language for another 1,000, but then you have 7 languages on there, then you can see how you started with a 3K project, then you moved over to more than 10K just by implementing what Thibaut is going to teach us here. Then we talked about build with Tanya, how to deliver or to build websites for your clients that are for global audiences. And we talked about Thibaut with expand. And I'm going to go right here in the middle with scale by Melissa Rachel Love, that is going to be showing us around building your turning your own website into a marketing machine. So that's why it's coming in the scale category, so that you can really generate a steady stream of leads. And Andrew, I'm going to direct this one to you because I know that you worked with Melissa. She actually helped you with some of the things on your website as well, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. We're kind of a to and fro. I help her with some technical aspects on her websites and speed optimization and server issues and stuff like that. And she's helped me with marketing. Certainly when I had elegantmarketplace.com, she's the first person in the Divi space to make a Divi child theme. So I call her the Queen of Divi. She's an amazing marketer. She has some talents that we all wish we had, like, what she's got in her little finger we need in our whole body. It's just amazing person. She continually helps people. Part of the thing that Melissa does really, really well is building communities. So her advice on building a community around what you're doing, where you're going, and why you're going there, and lots of free webinars, lots of free Facebook Lives. And she's an expert website builder, UX and designer. She uses tools like ProPhoto and Divi and Elementor. She's a real all-rounder on that. But really the marketing fix that she's got going on, if you don't join that, then you're missing out. And there's a lot of free content, a lot of education there. It's great. She's a great person in the community.
Awesome. So actually, if I'm looking at the schedule today, we have a whole lot of ladies, and I love that. And this is actually something that we proactively try to make sure. So there are like 3 white men, like right here on this session, that are talking to each other for a few days. So a lot of diversity happening today, and we can see. And I'm going to move over to Christina here on the Thrive category. So we already looked at the 4 different categories of the summit throughout the upcoming 4 hours. And then Thrive is when you already have a sustainable business that you learn how to do through the expand and then the scale categories. Then we need to make sure that the business actually thrives. We understand what it means to work with employees, what it means to work with how we can estimate or understand the value of what we're creating here. What does this really mean to build an agency of 50 plus employees, as we've seen on some of the other sessions? So what Christina is going to focus here is around measuring the value of your web agency. And Christina just sold her agency just a few months ago after building it for a few years. And so she's going to take us through that journey, what that really means. And Andrew, I know that you also sold a few of your WordPress-related businesses. So,
well, actually, I did, and I sold Page Builder Cloud and Layouts Cloud to Melissa Love. I just messaged
to Melissa, right?
Yeah, I just said, "Do you want to buy these?" She went, "Yep." Didn't even discuss a price. She went, "Yep, I'll have those." And yeah, and I sold Elegant Marketplace through Web Ventures, the lovely Mike Demo, and a few other people that I work with and submit.
Tomorrow, right? We have Demo here.
Yeah, Demo's great. He's like the lead handshake of a Web Ventures and does all sorts of deals. And they've just done a massive deal on Ramnode, I think. They bought Ramnode. So, Tom, you'll know who Ramnode are, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can't speak highly enough about Christina. She's amazing. And, one of the things that is really interesting, and I'm sure she'll share this, and if she doesn't, we should ask, but there's a lot of people out there looking to buy agencies, and a lot of times it's like, where do you go to find these deals? Because there's people with cash to make deals happen, and a lot of times it's very unstructured, and there's certain websites you can go to find these folks, and of course conferences like this and being in sessions like that. So just the networking of knowing Christina, since she is sort of the thought leader in that space, and knowing Mike Demo to be able to connect with people who might want to buy and sell is really valuable.
Yes, I agree. And then right after Christina, we're going to dive into discussing LinkedIn with Nicole. So Nicole already joined us, Andrew, and Stephanie, our co-host, in the initial kickoff of the event, and we kind of spoke about this a little bit, but the idea is, and you can see that this one is inside the expand category. The point behind this is that really after you build, you want to build a business, right? After you build the product, you want to build a business. And so how do you find those perfect clients? How do you define who is the perfect client that I'm looking for? And so Nicole is going to explore LinkedIn as a method of generating, getting noticed by them, so that you don't need to chase clients. They actually come to you because they understand that you are an expert in what you do. And then everything here is going to be discussed with organic outreach, so no need to spend money on ads or anything like that. So this is a really interesting talk, especially because I know that within my agency we got to a place where we were generating 60 plus meetings, not even just leads, but straight up meetings every single month directly from LinkedIn without paying a dime on ads. So I'm really excited to share this knowledge, or for Nicole to share this knowledge and to dive into this topic. Then we have 2 sessions in a row around accessibility, and you can see how one of them is inside the build and one of them is inside Thrive. And the reason why we try to group them up or create them in this way is because first, we need to understand how to build accessibility into our websites. This is such an aspect that is being it's not discussed enough, and it's actually becoming part of the law, isn't it, Andrew?
Yes, it is. Yeah, definitely. And it's been part of the law forever. I mean, it's something that we've all ignored for years. So you can, especially if you're governments tend to go for the big corporates. We had the issue with Domino's in the US not having accessibility because blind people couldn't get what was in the pizza, right?
Yeah, we get a pizza.
Image. So and at the very basic level, that's alternative text, and making sure that your website is readable by screen readers. I've got a blind friend of mine, which she's lovely, and she helps me do accessibility from a blind person's perspective. And also, if you have sound and video and stuff, you've got to think about deaf people, and you've got to think about people that actually use the spoken word. And what's interesting later on in the day or tomorrow is that there's, Ask Alexa. Sometimes you've got people that actually speak to their computer to guide themselves around a website. So you may have to think about what kind of text, how you're dealing with tabs and all that kind of stuff, and not using a website by using a mouse, so that you can actually use the tab keys to get around the website. So there's lots of things in accessibility that you can do that are really quite easy. But to be 100% accessible is almost impossible. So, these agencies accept that, but
let's see. Maybe Amber is going to teach us, and maybe
let's hope. But we've done some very accessible websites, and hopefully most of our websites, 99% of our websites are very accessible. So,
Beth Hannon who's a big accessibility person, told me once, she's like, marketers will spend tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars trying to increase their conversion rate by fractions of a percentage, and 7% of the population has some sort of a disability. I think that's the stat.
Sure.
And so it's like you could tap into a whole, there's absolutely a cost and profit and conversion rate argument to be made here with accessibility. So excited to see that.
And this really directs us into the next session about accessibility. Is like, well, if you don't want to do it because it's the right thing to do it because it's the profitable thing to do, or it can actually cost you a lot of money in the long run, like we've seen with companies like Domino's. And I just believe that it's going to be it's going to happen more and more over the upcoming years, both on the privacy side as well as on the accessibility side. So then we're going to talk with Colleen from Grazer Graphics about how ignoring accessibility costs you and your client. And you can see that this is inside the Thrive category because, as you said, Tom, people are spending tens of thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars to move the needle by 0.1% of the conversion rate when it comes to bigger websites, enterprise level clients. And that's why we kind of included this in the Thrive, because that's where this impact can really make a whole boatload of difference when working with bigger clients or with high traffic websites. So next up, we're going to go back to the scale category with Matthew Rodella. Matt is going to talk to us about why every agency needs a WAS. So if you guys are not familiar with the WAS model, this is website as a service, right? Everyone knows what SaaS is, software as a service, but WAS is essentially Shopify or Wix or what's coming up with by Elementor Cloud. WordPress.com is the biggest WAS in the world, really, and you have Squarespace and massive businesses that have been built based on the model of scalable deployment of templated based websites, and that's what a WAS is. And we're going to see what Matt has to say about this and why every agency needs this. And I can even touch into the bit of the why. I know that I had a lot of leads coming in, and my mindset was, I don't want to do the small projects. You have someone coming in and I only have $500. I only have $1,000. So my answer to them was, I guess we're not a good fit. Please, here is a link to Wix and talk to me in a few years, right? Which they never did. So instead, why not generate recurring revenue from those lower tier customers that can't really afford the custom builds that we wanted to deliver? Low maintenance projects that are self-deployable, like there's. So Matt is going to talk to us about that, and this really ties into what Chris Lima was talking about yesterday, Andrew, around what was the name of the concept?
Well, Nexus have got their own WAS going on, which is a WooCommerce store. So it's all they're using. Is it AI? I don't know. I've used it, and it's really easy to use. I did.
Yeah, but he was teaching around the ladder, the concept of the.
Yeah, there's the ladder there, but just to say that there's another thing out that Nexus do, which is their own WAS, which is they set up a WooCommerce WordPress website for you for $20 a month. But actually, you can do that. Follow Matthew's advice, and you can do that yourself. So you can become a Nexus, you can become a Wix, you can become a Shopify. But the ladders that he was talking about were, don't miss out on the opportunities that customers present themselves to you, even if they're not within your current mindset or your remit of doing. You want the over $1,000 or the $2,000 website. If you've got an opportunity to point them into a direction where you want them to go, take that opportunity, even down to the fact that the guy wanted Facebook developed, or a lot of customers have come to us and said, I want a networking thing, I want a Facebook, I want a LinkedIn. We say, well, I can sell you an ebook for $100 because you've only got $500 to sell on.
So if you want to catch Chris's talk, you can jump into the replays and you can find all of the replays from yesterday here from Ben Pines from Elementor, Chris Lima from Nexus, Miriam from Stratic, Adam from GoDaddy Pro, David from WP Engine. We have Roxana from Social Bee. We have Marek from Yoast, the CEO of Yoast. We have Alex from Cloudways. Chase from High Level, and then there's been a really interesting discussion about hosting by a panel from WordPress.com. So these are the sessions that we had yesterday. And finally, before we jump off, because we just ran out of time, Chip is going to talk about the future, really. So we can see here, going back to close the day with the build category, and Chip Edwards is going to talk about how to incorporate Amazon Alexa or smart speakers into your builds. And I think that this can have really interesting potential for additional upsells, even for existing clients that want to go into this space, maybe even like even local businesses that you can tell your speaker, your smart speaker, where can I find the local flower shop? Where can I get let's order some pizza. So it's gonna find the businesses that are within the radius of the smart device. So Chip is gonna talk to us about this concept. So we're gonna jump right into the discussion with Thibaut. If you're watching us on social media, please come and join the event. All you need to do is go to Summit. Atarim.io/summit. We have today starting right now, and tomorrow is the final day before the after party at the end of a Friday night, where we're all going to be hanging out at the lounge together. So come and join us here. It's completely free, and you're all invited to join the party. And for those that are already on the live sessions with us here today, thank you everyone for starting to jump in. And we're going to jump right into Thibaut's session next. Thank you, guys. Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Andrew. And
See you
thanks
later.